Okay, so I just started recording this again. So we're troubleshooting. And so that's that one. And then if I click on the next one, you can see that we have styles for the color. Okay, those were for the links. And then same for the hover. We have the color for the text and the background. And then this one here under properties, this one could be the one for you. And that was the one where I found my problem, or added it. Is it the width was 700, that's where we added 715 pixels. And then the margins are set to 0 on the top, 0 on the bottom, and auto on the left, and auto on the right. So if you have a margin on the bottom, that could be where that extra space is. Or it could be this one. So here we have .row, .navbar. And so let me go ahead and in margins here, let me put 20 pixels there just for the heck of it. And see what that does. And see what that does.
Yeah.
That goes all the way around. So that's clearly not it, but you can see what happens. So my guess, it was for what you had, it could have been .row space .nav.navbar hyphen nav. That could be where the extra margin was added at the bottom. But if it's not,
no, because that's set at 0. I'm wondering if there's a way I can make the boxes bigger. That go like
those, I'm not sure you want to do that. So let's go back here though, because for each of the, all we did for those is that we added, it could have been, and I'm not sure how it would have happened, but all of the bootstrap CSS is supposed to be read only. You're not supposed to be able to edit it. So the buttons that they created for us and that nav bar that we inserted, okay, there's a default padding that goes around all of it. And that you don't want to change.
Okay.
And the same with the margins. That's just left alone, that whole nav bar. But again, that could be here. So make sure that when you add the styles, if it is editable, and on mine, I guess I could edit the bootstrap, and that could have been a mistake. If you go back to bootstrap, that could have been where it was added. It's supposed to be read only.
Okay.
Because that's bootstrap CSS you do not want to change. Ever, ever, ever. It's just that they're too interlinked and intertwined with one another.
Right.
A number of styles, and if they do get changed, then that could be a problem. So that could be another possibility. Kind of messy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It just takes one little thing to get goofed up, and then to figure out where that was is hard to figure out. And that could be, but that could be another possibility, that somehow the bootstrap CSS is what was changed. So when I come back here though, when I just look at green style CSS, these are the only areas that it could have been edited or changed. And my guess, for me, it was here. So the other option could be is look at all sources. Let's do that. And then what we want to do is we're going to come back here and we're going to select the default nav bar here, the whole nav bar.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to use the code selector down here. Not the container. You don't want that, because that, I mean, I guess that could have been there, but maybe not. But let's select the nav bar itself. And then again, under current, and again, we can show set and see if there's anything that's been edited or changed. And that might be an other area. So if margins shows up, that could be something that was changed. Let me go back to this. Okay, so now I have the whole container selected that contains that nav bar. You can see that in the margins, we have 0 at the top, 0 at the bottom, and auto and auto. And you can also see the padding, 15 pixels on the left, 15 pixels on the right. So it's possible that either, it would be, my guess is it would be margins that would be added. Let's see if that's the case.
Yeah, everything's at 0.
Hmm. Okay, well, while you're looking, I have a question here. So Nelson, why even have access to the bootstrap if we can't mess with them? The answer is to that. Okay, for some people have the same question you have, Nelson. That for many people, bootstrap just makes it more challenging for them. On the flip side of that is that bootstrap offers a lot of helpful elements you can insert without programming yourself. And you can go in and you can tweak it, but the problem is that if you do tweak the bootstrap, if you're not careful and you don't really know what you're doing, and I would put myself in that category, you can run into problems. I mean, you might have an immediate fix, but down the road, that fix that you made may inadvertently affect something else. But you're right, some people complain about bootstrap and they think it's kind of a nuisance, but for whatever reason, the world, the web consortium has decided that bootstrap is really very useful. And so that's what we're using, and that's what most people use to build websites now. They integrate bootstrap. I think mostly because they were the first people to deal with responsive websites in a cohesive kind of systematic way that no one had done before. And responsive websites are just a part of what we do now. I mean, I view websites as much on my phone as I do on my screen. So, to make sure that it's compatible, that's really important. So I don't know if that properly answers your question, but that's sort of where we're at here. We've got a couple of chats here. It's not, well, Bootstrap is here not because of tradition, because it's not a very old tradition. This is to answer Nelson's question. It's just a handful, just a few years old. It's not that old. And you have to remember, we're using the 2017 edition of the textbook, and Bootstrap was around only maybe a couple of years before that. So it's only been around for about 5 years. That's not that old. I guess in web years, like in dog years, that's a long time, I suppose. Well, Dan, let's come back to you. I'm going to try to deal with them. David, are you there? You want to talk?
Yeah, hi.
Okay, so let's look. You're having troubles inserting the image. Now, is it the fern or is it the stripes?
It is the fern.
Okay, so let's come back here. So instead of viewing all sources, I'm just going to view turn off show set and I'm going to look at not current, but all. And I want to look at green styles, okay? So what I want to do is it will be under the header. So let's look under header.row. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say show set, see what I have here. And let's go back up. Header, I got to find the right one. So I'm going to click inside here and see if I can't find the right, yeah, sometimes finding the correct rules can be a problem. So I want header, not header row, just not, oh, come on, where are you? Let me turn off set then. Let's come back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select header down at the bottom. So just the whole header. So header.row. And now let's look at the background and see what we have. There we go. So can you find this? Do you have header.row in your green style CSS?
I actually just sent you an email of I like pictured my website where it's at now. And yes, I followed the steps like in the book, and it looks just like that. But
Okay.
In the preview, it doesn't show the fern being added.
So, okay. So one of the first things that you have to do, that I have to remind everybody that it could be a problem, is that it's not showing up, or that it's not placed in the right location and the right size. David?
Yeah.
Is it that the fern isn't showing up at all, or it's not showing up in the right place and the right size?
It's not showing up at all.
Okay, so then that might be a different issue. So what you need to do, and this is a reminder to everyone, is that you need to, every time you open this up, you need to go to Site, go to Manage Sites, and if you have created the site for your website, you know, for our lessons, then you need to make sure that it's selected. So I'm going to go back into mine, and for this one, for this particular one, remember, every time you do a new lesson, you need to change the location of your root folder. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this little folder right here, and it needs to take me to the lesson 7 folder. That will become your root folder. And then click choose. Then the next important step is to make sure that the images that you select are contained within that root folder. So you're going to select local info here, and then you're going to click on this little folder button up here and make sure that the image folder is the one that's inside lesson 7. So I'm going to select lesson 7, and then I'm going to select the folder that's contained inside lesson 7 and select choose, and then click save. Then click done. And then you should be able to add the correct, add images and see if
that was the problem. I was still in lesson 6. I didn't put lesson 7.
Yeah, so that's a very common mistake, one that I continue to make myself if I'm not thinking about it. And normally, and that's another thing, that when we're working on the lessons, it's sort of a different animal. And the way that they've structured the lessons is that every lesson is basically a root folder that's self-contained. But when you're working on your own websites, and you could be working on 1, 2, 3, or 4, each website will have its own root folder. And you don't want multiple folders for a website. In fact, you'll get error messages if you do. So that could be an issue in the future. So it's just unusual because I have multiple websites that I manage, but each one only has a single root folder, and contained within that root folder is an image folder. And you have to make sure that when you're working on that specific website, that specific image folder is linked to, is contained within that root folder.
Excuse me for.
Because as I said, with web design, unless just about everything that we're putting in this website is linked to that page, it's not contained within it. It lies outside of it. So the path to those folders is critical, because it's looking for a specific path to reach that particular folder. And if it goes down that path and it can't find it, then you get nothing. And that will be true later on when you upload or you publish your website and you don't see any of the styles that you've created, because that means that the style sheet that you've created is linked to it, but it may be linked in the incorrect location. And that's another thing that easily gets messed up with web design. Is that sort of making sense to everybody? I hope. It does get confusing. Yeah, David, question?
Yeah, hi. Can you show again? What do you need to do when switching over to lesson 7? You just like switch the root folder of the site? That's all?
Say one more time about, okay, when you downloaded the lessons, did you download the entire lesson folder that I made available on Google Drive?
Just lesson 6.
Oh, just go ahead and download them all.
Okay.
And put them on your computer, and then use that as your basic source. And then every time you do a new lesson, then go ahead and link the root folder to that particular lesson.
Okay. Thank you.
Okie doke. Dan, are you there? Were you able to find your source of the problem?
No, I'm still kind of looking. I keep going back and forth between like the nav bar and like.
Well, what I do, and I don't know if this is a good practice or not, but as I'm working on the lessons, this is what I try to do, is that when I reach a particular stage that I'm happy with, then I'll save it, and then I'll save the next stage. I'll name it version 2, 3, 4, 5, so I can always go back. And sometimes it's, rather than to sit for days on end and try to troubleshoot, it's easier to go back to a previous version and then just go from that point forward and try to work on the page that way. And then it might be easier to troubleshoot, because if you're building it from that point forward, then you'll be able to see clearly, well, this isn't working right, so it must be in here somewhere. That's the only thing I can suggest, because I'm pointing to all the things at the moment that come to mind, areas that could be, that you could troubleshoot, and nothing else is coming to mind. So that's as much as I can help at the moment. Okay. Sort of. So anyway, are you guys then, can we go ahead and you're ready to kind of work on the lesson? Watch me goof up, and then you won't feel so bad. So let me go ahead. I'm gonna mute a few people. So I'm gonna disable talking for you, Dan, and disable talking for you, David. And we're gonna try this again. And as I said earlier, I don't know if all of you heard me, that I was able to fix my mistakes from Tuesday after we ended the webinar. But what happened is that I had a syntax error so that I couldn't see. It's similar to what I did the other day when Dan told me that I didn't have a B, I think, or something like that, and it just wouldn't work. It's very similar. So media queries. Let's see again how far we can get with this. So this is responsive already, okay? That by sliding this across, we can see what it's going to look like, what our web page is going to look like on a large, medium, small, and kind of a handheld, smartphone device. And the first thing that we want to do is that we want to change the order. We want our article with the main headline in here to read first, not the block quote. So that's the first order of change. And then we need to change a few things for that. So to do that, I'm going to go over to the DOM, and I'm going to make sure that it is visible. And I'm going to make sure that CSS is visible. And let's see. Okay, so not in the header. I don't want that. I want the main row. And then I'm going to twirl down in the main row and select the left aside and drag it so that it is directly beneath the article. And that's what I want. So now, I mean, it doesn't work now, but when this resizes to a small screen, you can see what happens, that it's stacked in the right order. But for a medium size, a small or medium size or large screen, it doesn't work for us. So what I need to do now is I need to add some additional information for each of these to get them, to fit properly in the medium and the small size, medium, large, and small size screens. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click here. And what I want to add to this is going to be, let's see, I want column medium 3 or small 3, just like what I have here. And then I want dot column hyphen small. And this is where I always forget, is it push or pulling? And I guess it's going to pull it back. So I want it to pull and then hyphen 6 units, because that's the width of the main article. Hit the tab key and that moves it over. I have a question under question and answer. So hold on here. Thank you, anonymous attendee. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it is also, this is weird for me. When I'm in the classroom, I goof up too, but I don't feel like I'm goofing up as much. Anyway, because I can hem and haw and I can come back and we can take a coffee break and fix it. But sometimes when I feel I'm, under this compressed hour that I don't know, I kind of feel like I'm under the gun sometimes. So anyway, back to the lesson, that I hope that I can get this fixed properly now. So we have the left aside in its right position, but see that it's layered on top of the other, the main article. So now what we need to do is select the main article, and I'm going to use the tag selector down here and select the article like so. And now we want to not pull, but push it over, and we're going to push it over 3 units. So I'm going to go ahead and add the plus sign here. So we want dots, column, hyphen, small, SM for small, hyphen, and we're going to put 3. So we want 3 unit, or I'm sorry, got to make sure that it is push. There we go. I forgot that the other day too. 3. And that gets it in the right position. So for a small screen, we're in good shape right now. So that for a small, medium, large, it reads really nice. And when we resize it and we go down to one that fits on a small tablet or on a smartphone, now you'll notice that instead of the quotation being the first, it's a second in line. So we had to do some gymnastics in order to get there. And that's a part of all web design. This is not specific to, we're changing the syntax for the HTML. This has nothing to do with the bootstrap right now. So now what we want to do is, and this is a suggestion from the book. I mean, you could leave this as is if you wanted to. But what we're going to do is we're going to make this for a medium and large screen, and then we're going to change it for a small, and then we're going to add a media query for an even smaller smartphone screen. So I'm going to come back into each of these, and I'm going to change this. Instead of small, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to change this to medium. So that the abbreviation for medium screen is MD, and hit the tab key. And then again, I'm going to come back in here. Come on. I need to make sure that this is, all correct. And sometimes on my screen here, it's really hard to click in there to get the right thing. So medium, there we go. Now I need to do that for the article and the right aside. So I'm going to use the tag selector down here, select the article if that's not selected properly. And again, do the same thing. We're going to change this for in here. There you go. Instead of small, we're going to put medium and hit the tab key. So that fixes that. And then we want medium again, MD. And I'm going to change that for the right aside as well. But watch what happens to the right aside when I do that. So here's the right aside. And I want this to be, there we go, got to click in here, medium, MD. Okay, so there we have that, sidebar 2. So we're in good shape. So far, so good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create another set of these for a small screen. So if we move this down to a small screen size, around the 768 size or so, we can do that. And we can select each of these again. So now we're going to create one for small. So I'm going to go ahead. I like doing it when I see all of them in a row rather than stacked like that. So I'm going to go back and select the left aside again. And I'm going to use the tag selector to do that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another plus one here, and we get down to the bottom. And so what we're going to do now, since we changed all of those to medium, is now we're going to create them for small. But they're going to be a different width. For medium and large, the asides are 3 units, and the main article is 6. So 3, 6, and 3 adds to 12. But now we're going to break it down for small screens and really small screens for smartphones. We're going to break it down to 4 and 8, and then that will work for us. Again, those 4 and 8s add up to 12. So I'm going to do dot column hyphen small. And I want this to be 4 units for a screen. Hit the tab key. And then I'm going to add the plus sign again here. And And I want this now, this needs to be pulled over, not 6 units, but 8, because we're doing 4 and 8. So I want dot column hyphen small pull 8 tab. Now we need to do that, something very similar for the main one here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead to article. Okay, so here we go. Make sure in the tag selector I have the article selected. 1. There we go. So now we're going to go ahead, because we did it for the medium, we're going to add this now for small. So this is going to be dot column hyphen small SM. And this is going to be the full, this is going to be 8 units. Okay, 8. Okay, hit the tab key. And now we're going to add that again. We're going to add another one. And this needs to be pushed 4 units over. So remember, we did 8 for the left side. Now we want 4 units for this. So I'm going to do dot column hyphen small push 4 units. There we go. And we're going to do the same, or a little bit different for the bottom one down here, or the right side. Because I changed that for medium, but let me go back again, and I want the right side selected. There we go. So we have this for the medium, but now we're going to change it for the small. And the small, we're going to have the right side be a total of 8 units that will sit underneath the main article. Because remember, you can only have 12 units, so if there's additional units that it finds, it automatically shoves it underneath. So we're going to do dot column small, and we want 8 units hyphen. And now, in order for this to fit, we want this to be, well, let's do it like this for right now and see what happens. So I'm going to leave that like so, and you can see what happens. Okay, this was for a small screen. The left side is 4 units. The main article or main content is 8 units, but because this now exceeds, the right side exceeds that 12 unit limit, it should get shoved down to the next line. We don't want that. We want it to be tucked neatly underneath the main article. So I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm going to add another one here. And I'm going to put dot column hyphen small. And we want to move that over 4 units. 4 units. Okay. Whoops, I can need it be push. Sorry. Push 4 units. There you go. Okay, so that fits nicely. So again, we're customizing this for, different size screens, and it works nicely. Except it doesn't work nicely for a medium or large screen anymore. So now we need to fix that. Okay, and this is the thing that I need to continually need when I'm doing this on my own. I need to refer to the textbook myself, because I go, oh shoot, what am I doing wrong here again? I forget. So what we're going to do now for a medium size is that we have to say push 0, and it actually now will get it back into order. How would you know to do that? The only reason I know is from reading the textbook. And it does make sense, it's sort of, but to know that on your own, I don't know how you would figure that one out. I really don't. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that. So this is going to be dot column medium, and it's going to be hyphen push. Whoops, can't spell push. USH 0. There you go. Hit the tab key. Oh, see, it's not MED, it's MD. So I can't, again, wrong syntax. And that was what I was sort of what I was doing the other day. It doesn't recognize MED for medium, it's MD for medium. There, now it works. So now we have all, for each of our screen sizes, large and medium, we have our 3-column format, which works really nice. And they are in the order that we want them. We have our left aside, our main content with the article in it, and we have our right aside. And then as we scroll down to a small screen, it switches from a 3-column to a 2-column format. Now, later on this semester, when you're designing your own website, you might think about, because if you look at my website, I only use 1 and 2-column formats. I don't use 3 for my personal website. It's just an aesthetic thing. It's my personal taste. You could have more columns too if you want. I mean, it's entirely up to you. But 3 is kind of the norm, and 2 and 1. So later on, if you wanted to create templates for each of those, you could do that. And then when we resize this again for a really small screen, you can see that it comes down here and it fits nicely. We have the little hamburger icon in the upper right-hand corner. And you'll notice now that our article with the main content is the thing that reads first, not the quotation. So everything is working beautifully at the moment. Ta-da! It only took me a gazillion tries because I can't tell you how many tries I did afterwards. And I just wasn't thinking clearly. And, is it push? Is it pull? Which is left and which is right. So that pushes it over and that pulls it back. No, I have it wrong. That pulls it back and that pushes it over, right? I don't know. So if one is wrong, the other has to be right. Fortunately, we only have 2 choices. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started today with the media queries. And because we're going to create our own media query. That's what this box up here is for. And that means that we're going to have a similar set of styles, but they will only be in effect when a screen is of a particular size. And the size that they want us to work on is that as we continue to make our screen smaller and smaller, as we get down to about 426. Look in the header of the document here. And it's right about there. Notice that green awareness and action goes from 1 line to 2. And also look at the fern. It gets a little bit too large for a little tiny screen. So if we shrink this all the way down to like 320, 340 or 60, it really becomes evident that the sizing of these elements doesn't work anymore. So we're going to work in the header and resize it because this is the reason why you would use Bootstrap, because in the nav bar everything fits perfectly. It works. It's really elegant. I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't try to change a thing. It's the other that we're gonna tweak. So what we're gonna do, and we're gonna use the book as a guide here. I'm gonna change this to 426, about 426 pixels or so. And you're gonna see this little button up here, the little plus sign, because these are our media queries here. We're gonna add our own media query. And that's going to appear right here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add this one here. And I want the maximum width to be 426 pixels. Okay. And I don't want it to create a new CSS file. I just want it to go inside green styles here. Okay. And I'll click OK. And you'll notice, there we go. Over here in the media queries, we have maximum width 420. So I'm going to leave this at this size. Actually, we can make it even a little bit smaller just for the heck of it to try to make the corrections on this. So now we need, we created our custom media query. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start to style it. So let's start with a paragraph tag. So what I want to do, instead of having green styles selected, I'm going to select the maximum width here. And the maximum width, you can see that we don't have any specific styles created for it. So if I select the plus here, if I click in, let's go ahead and click and select, if I can, the paragraph in here. There we go. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a selector for it. And I don't want this one. I could use it, but I don't need that. It's going to be header.row P, because that's basically duplicating what we did before and getting rid of the column small 12. So I'm going to go back here. So it's header.row, because that's what we used before, which is technically the right syntax. And I hit the return key twice. And now we're going to override this one. When it gets to this size, will override the other. So what we want to do now is we're going to, once that's selected, we've got that. We want the letter spacing to be less. So it's going to be 0.1 ems. So with text selected, I'm going to come there and I want, where is the letter spacing? Not size, line height, on a line. Wait, come on, where are you? There you go, letter spacing. So we're going to use ems. Notice that that condenses, so I know I'm in the right, right category here. We want it to have the same look and feel as the other, so we want it to be expanded a little bit. So it's going to be 0.1 em. And so now when it goes down to a small size, it works nicely. See that? That we increase it. It really is it's continuous. You really don't notice any difference. But when it goes down to a small size, the letter spacing changes, but it fits the size of the screen. So that does work, pretty nicely. So the next thing that we're going to change is we're going to, for the header itself, we're going to come back to green. We're going to go back to green styles. And this is where we're going to copy and paste some properties here. So you can do that. So we're going to come back to header.row. Where we go here, because we're going to change the size of the fern is what we want. So I want header.row, right this. And so I want to copy all the properties that exist in green styles. So I'm going to right click and I want to say copy, copy styles. I'm going to say copy all styles. Okay. And now I'm going to come back to maximum width here. And I'm going to create the style header.row. So this is going to be just header.row. And that's it. And I'm going to paste those styles into that. But I don't need all of them. So we're going to get rid of some of those. Okay, so now I can right click in here and I can say paste styles. So all the styles that I had created before are in here, but we don't need all of them. Okay, so one of the things that we don't need, for example, we can come up to the background, and because it will inherit the background color green, we can get rid of that. Okay. We don't want to get rid of the fern, but we are going to change the size of it. We also are going to change the size, the background size. So instead of 81%, it's going to be, I have to look at myself to see what size we're going to use for this. What size are we going to use? We're going to go ahead and actually we're going to go back to background size should be 75%. So this should be, make sure that that's, let's try, that's not right. That was for the size of the stripes, and that we have to change in the code. So we have 81%. No, they leave it that size. I mean, I kind of like a little bit smaller. Let's try it a little bit smaller. I think that works a little bit better for us. Maybe like 75%. And maybe that's what they have, but you know, I think that works a little bit better. Okay. Then what we need to do is we need to look in green styles, and we need to find down here, since we copied all of this. Let me move this up a little bit so we can see, because this will be one of the last things that we added here. Okay. So in this one here, we have background position. Let's see, for the stripes, we had 74%, and now that needs to be changed, I think. So hold on one second here. I need to make sure that I have this right myself. Come on. Well, they have here, this is, I have 74, but they have 75, and that's fine. And then the stripes should be a little bit smaller too. They have auto, but I guess I'll just leave them the same. Okay, so we're good to go. So that works nicely. You can change it here. And I could change it here if I don't like the size of that. But it does look a little horsey, but I guess we're okay. So I'm going to go back to source code, and we're going to create a few more rules, and then we will be done. I think we have a little bit of time left to finish this up. So I'm going to go back to header.row, and we're going to change the font size, and we're going to change the padding. And then we're also going to change the H1 and the H2 tag for the main row here. So I'm going to go back over here to header.row, and let's change the padding first. Let's do that. Instead of 20 pixels, it's going to be 10 pixels. So let's go ahead and change that to 10. There you go. That does fit a little bit better. Okay. And then the font size, we're going to change that to 90%, so that it fits small screen a little bit better. So let's go to font size and go to percentage. Let's change that. That's what we want to see to make sure that it's affecting it. And I want that to be 90%. There we go. So it shrinks down a little bit to fit a small screen. So the next thing that we're going to do now, so now that we have our header fix, our header fix, we're going to change the main content here. We're going to change the H1 and H2 tags. So I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to add a brand new selector. And I want this to be, because it's based on what I have selected, that's what it did. So I want main.row, article H1. Let's just get rid of all of that. We'll just do it by hand. make sure that I don't make any typos. So we want, again, main dot row space, or I'm sorry, yeah, space, article, space H1. Okay, hit the return key twice. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to change the padding. So we're going to come back here. We're going to change the margins and the padding. So just the padding. So we're going to change the padding here to top 15, and that's it. We're only changing the top 15 pixels. Okay, and that pushes it down a little bit. And then we want to change the font size so it's a little bit smaller, and again, so it fits a little bit nicer in there. So I'm going to select T, and I want font size. And again, how do you know what sizes to use? Right now, I'm just following the guidelines in the book, and when they work well, I use them. When they don't, then I tweak them. But they serve as a nice kind of guideline for me. It's like somebody else has done the guesswork. So I think, and that works a little bit nicer. Okay, so that's 185%. And then we want the line height to be 1.1 em. So I'm going to come down here to line height. Where's line height? There we go, line height. And it's going to be done in ems. And it's going to be 1.1 ems. 1.1. There we go. So that pushes that down a little bit. And then we also want the type alignment now to be centered. So that works a little bit better for a teeny tiny little screen. Now for my taste, 185% is a little bit too small. Maybe I would want it on 2 lines. It depends on how long my my header, the H1 tag is going to be when I actually place existing text in there. So the next one now, and then we will be done, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create one for the H2 tag. So this is going to be for the H2. So this is going to be main.row article article H2. So now we're going to affect the subhead, and then we'll be good. So what we want here is for the type size to be 150%. That makes sense. You want it smaller than the H1 tag. Okay. So yeah, see, I forgot the I. That's why it's not working. So that's a good place to stop and to fix. Let's select type height, type size. Come on. Type size. No, it's still not affecting it. So main dot, I don't have article spelled right. I thought I added the I. I did, but I didn't hit the return key twice. That's why. That's where it goes. So now I can put in 175%. And we also want it to be centered as well. And that makes sense for a small screen to center it rather than flush right, or flush left rather. And that works kind of nicely. And the line height they want us to change is, again, 1.1 ems. So we're going to switch to ems, and we want 1.1 em. 1.1 em. Okay, so we have that set up. So we are forgetting anything? No, we are done for today. So let's go ahead and save everything. And that's what you have to remember to do. So I'm going to make sure that I save the page, file, save. But really what you want to remember to do, because I added all that CSS, is that you want to save all. File, save all to make sure that the CSS is saved. And now, when we stretch this across, we are really good to go. So what I'm going to do next Tuesday is that once you have lesson 7 completed, we are going to publish this, and I'm going to show you how you publish it. So we'll start by creating the account that I was talking about the other day, the free account. In the past, we used 000webhost.com, but we're going to use infinity.com this time. And it worked well for me, and I'm going to publish this again for you to show you how it works, so it will be published for everybody. Okay. Now, Dan said he found the problem. He found it by accident. It was in the .row navbar -nav. Click on the height and the type and 0 pixels, and that fixed it. Okay. So again, yeah, maybe here, Dan, let me let you speak again. So see how you happened upon it by accident. Dan, hold on here. So Dan, how did you happen upon it by accident? Dan, you there? Anyway, he was able to fix his spacing problem, and it was where I thought it was in that particular selector. But oh, your mic isn't working. Sorry. Oh, that's okay. Anyway, you can hear Dan, but I can't. Huh. Can you hear me okay? Hold on here. It says here you're talking, but maybe, yeah, talking permitted. Let me unmute. Try again, Dan. It shows it going up and down. Why am I not hearing? Oh, I probably know why. Duh, I need to change. You know what? I'm here talking and I don't hear any of you. So I need to go to my microphone and I need to change this to MacBook Pro speakers. There you go. Now I can hear you. Go ahead, Dan.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
It was my fault, not yours. Well, because I'm using an external speaker and the battery died. And so it just defaulted to my microphone speakers, and that's an earbud that I don't have in my ear. So I had to change it to the computer. I have 3 different speakers that I can choose from. So it's working. I can hear you just fine. So how did you find it by accident?
Yeah, I kind of kept, backtracking to when I noticed it, that kind of thing. And anyways, yeah, I ended up just going to, the .row, .navbar, .nav, and I was messing with the width, and then I went to the height just to
Font
maybe
height?
put in. No, I went into the layout height.
Layout. Oh, the height of, okay.
Yeah,
See, I didn't think to look there because we hadn't changed any of that.
Yeah, and I think it was like default to auto or something, but I can't remember. All I did was I entered in a number. I tried like 5, and that made it even more. So then I typed in 0, and then it snapped, and I was like, oh,
Okay. I
Okay.
think what happened is that it's possible because it is set to auto by default.
Okay. Okay.
But I think that was done in, that would be a bootstrap element that maybe got changed by mistake. So
Mm,
you're basically overriding it, which it will work now. And I don't know where you would find it in the bootstrap.
right.
There's so many
So,
damn rules in bootstrap to find the source of it would be a pain.
right. So yeah, so it was set for auto. And so I just put in a value, and then that made it even whiter. And I thought, well, that's not right. So then I put in 0, and when I did that, it snapped, and it's fine now. It's perfect.
Yeah. Well, another thing that's weird about web design too is oftentimes many of the settings are set to 0 pixels by default. But if you want 0 pixels, you have to put that in manually. It doesn't automatic. It looks like it defaults to 0, but it doesn't.
Right, right. Yeah, there's some really weird things that you think it would be, automatically doing things, but then you have to manually type something in, and then it'll snap into place.
Yep. And I don't have, that's the weirdness of web design. I don't have an explanation for it. I just,
Yeah.
it's like, why do you put a period at the end of a sentence? I don't know. That's just a rule that somebody,
Right.
people
Well,
create.
one of the issues I kept running into was when I was adding a selector. Like in your videos, you would say press enter twice. Well, when I would do that, it would make what I just typed in completely disappear. And so I would have to type it in again. So I finally just stopped hitting enter and just clicking outside of where I typed, and it would stay, and then it would make the changes to whatever I did.
Yeah, well, see, that's the other thing with Dreamweaver that's kind of weird. When you're working over here to the right and you're changing the properties, after you've changed them, you hit the tab key. And I forget
Oh,
this all the time. If you hit enter, nothing happens. On the other hand, it's weird when you add a selector over here, you have to hit the return key twice
huh.
for it to add. Then over here, again, when I was changing some of these properties, when I go back, let me select one of these again, and I select the article. So I'm going to use the tag selector to select that. Again, if you hit the return key, it's going to ask you if you want to change the bootstrap, and I don't. I want to override it with the local HTML. And so again, you have to hit the tab key. So that's something by me repeating to you, it helps kind of me to remember a little bit better, because from semester to semester, I forget sometimes. So when I'm changing these, it's the tab key. When I'm changing these over here and I'm adding a selector, or I'm even editing a selector, I have to, if I want to edit it, I just double click on here and I can change that. But when I'm done with that, I have to hit the return key twice for that to take effect. And then any
Now,
properties that I change over here, I hit the tab key. Now,
let me
why?
see.
I don't know. That's just how they set it up. And there's never been any explanation for why they did
Now,
it that way.
now, when you add a selector and you make your modifications, where does that show up in the code?
It does, okay, look at the top, and this is good for everybody, that if you look at the source code, you will not see it. That's not where it's located, because this is an external style sheet that we created and attached. So it's in a separate file that if we look under files here, where you'll see it is here, it says greenstyles.css. That is a separate style sheet that has to be contained or located within your root folder. And if I switch at the top over here from source code to green style CSS, that's where I see all of those rules.
Okay. Okay. That.
And they're
Okay. Yeah, because
they're just added in the order that we added them in with the selectors. And sometimes those can have an effect on the overall visibility of your page. Because if you remember, I mean, if you paid, for those of you who read chapter 3 on CSS, is that the closest style wins. And so that means that the last one that's been added, if it conflicts with an earlier one, it will override that earlier one. But for us, that hasn't been an issue. And it hasn't been an issue for me for a long time. So I've kind of forgotten about that, but that is the case. And if you actually if we were to take one of these styles and embed it in the head of the document, it would override our external style sheet because that's closer to the actual text or image or whatever that it's going to affect. So you have to be careful. And by and large, most styles now are added to style sheets that are external. And the reason will become evident in the next lesson, in lesson 8, when we create a template, because we can attach this style sheet to multiple pages. It can be attached to 1 page, 2 page, 200 pages. And then if you go back to the template, all you have to do is you have to make one little change and it automatically will update all the pages that have been, the child pages that have been created from that master page, that template page. And that can be wonderful, or it can, if you're not careful, like with any kind of code in here, it can be a disaster. You can also ruin 200 pages too. But that's the whole point of that, is that kind of to move away from styling individual pages and have them affect an entire body of pages, an entire website, so that it has a more cohesive look and you can do it in a more effective and way, I suppose. And it does work. It does work. It's just that, you know, you have to be careful. And man, I make mistakes all the time. So.
all right. Well,
And
thanks for explaining that, because.
And again, for those of you who think that coding all of this stinks and is frustrating, I can't disagree with you. I am not a coder. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that I'm not a very good proofreader or a typist. So, you know, I frequently make mistakes, and it's difficult to go back and to troubleshoot and to find out where those mistakes are. When they work, it's like, it's wonderful. You know, it's like I just leave the damn thing alone and save it. Use it and then use that as a template for the future, and then use that as a starting point. So that's why I'm saying for your final website, the third one that you guys will be building, my recommendation is that you use these lessons as a template for yourself, and then go back in and not create new rules, maybe new rules as needed, but edit the existing ones and change the background color, change the text color, change the fonts, change whatever, but it's already sort of done for you. The only major changes that I would make would be early on. Instead of, I would have you start off by having a 3-column format, but I would go back in and I would customize it so that you'd also have a template for a 2-column format, so that you would start off with a medium and a large size screen having 4 and 8 units, and then have a 1-column format. So if you wanted a nice big splashy, you know, home page with maybe a video or one large image in the foreground, that you could go ahead and you could eliminate the asides for a 3rd template. So that would be my, you know, the only major changes that I would make, or additions. But yeah, so I don't know if that helps everybody.
No, that was really helpful, because I'm As I'm doing this, I'm looking down at the code to see like, oh, what's it adding? What, where is it getting this line to know where to do this?
Mhm.
And, I mean, I've taken a C++ class, so I know like, okay, this is where it's getting this code from. This is where it's getting this code from. But yeah, this style sheet thing, it's all new to me.
Yeah, it's a different animal. It's taking it and it's separating it. And that was the whole point of CSS is to take the styling and to remove it from the HTML to make them separate elements so that you have your core HTML and the core syntax that you use for that, and then use CSS as a separate element to style it. Rather than like one of the first pages that we looked at when we were looking at CSS, where looking at that chapter, and everything was embedded in, when it was done entirely in HTML, it was line for line. You had to go back in and check the code. And that was untenable after a while. The richer that websites became, visually, then something had to give. So, well, if it's okay with everybody, I got a meeting that I'm late for. So I'm gonna end today. You guys have a good weekend. And then on Tuesday, I'm gonna show you how to publish this. And then that will be the next big thing. And then you'll be finishing up your Wix website. Some of you have already finished yours, and that will be the second big thing. And then we're gonna move on to another website and more lessons. Okie doke.
Okie doke.
Okay, bye-bye for now.
All right.
Okay.